Hey, what is up, guys? Flex Media here, bringing you yet another video on Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle. And we are here in the Legendary Goku event, completing the brand new missions that just dropped, I don't know, last week or so. I'm kind of picking them off one by one here. Now this one, I was not able to complete, like there's no twofers or anything like that. I'm just completing Wicked Bloodline and only Wicked Bloodline. So the deal with this team is, there are not a lot of good defensive stacking options. So you're essentially reliant on a couple of things here. So number one, I do have actually a couple of stackers on the team. But again, they're very, very limited in your selection. There's like literally, I don't know, one or two to choose from or something. So they're just very limited. So I'm relying on them. And obviously you can see I have Tech, Gold, and Frieza, and I'm really relying on not falling below 50% HP. So this is going to require that I use careful item manipulation. So and then also understanding that I'm going to need to get lucky on a few super attacks here. Now this is going to be good because actually I was fortunate enough not to kill Fizz Goku on this first rotation. So on the second rotation, Tech Pod Frieza is actually going to be able to attack and then stack his attack and defense. Now you may notice that Pod Frieza is indeed still in his pod, which would indicate that we are using the SSR version of the first form Frieza. So essentially first form Frieza, if you are unfamiliar with his card, he's actually quite a strong unit, and I probably could have got it done without making him an infinite stacker. But the thing about it is, so he does a lot. So number one, he does stack his attack and defense all the way up to his golden form, and he does recover HP. Now, how his card works, so first form, he's got like 80% attack and defense, recovers 12% HP, and then it's sort of from there, he keeps getting more and more attack and less defense. So by the time you get to Golden Frieza, the only defensive, you don't have a defensive buff. All you have are just his raw stats. So whatever he stacked up from first form all the way to final form, that's what you have in terms of defense. So what I decided to do, he also does heal. I don't know if I mentioned that. So by the time he gets to Golden Frieza, he does heal 15% each turn. So I am missing out on quite a bit, reversing him back to SSR. But what am I primarily concerned about here? I am primarily concerned about stacking defense. I talk about this all the time. You can literally beat this event free to play with units who stack defense, assuming you can do a little bit of damage to Goku and you're able to have a couple big damage dealers, you know, for instance, LR Vegito Blue or something. But you can beat this free to play as long as you have units who stack their attack and defense. So anyway, that's what I decided to do here. So Pod Frieza, and he does remain in his pod in his SSR form. He infinitely raises his attack and defense on his super attack. He gets 60% attack and defense at the start of turn and recovers 10% HP. So essentially, he's kind of like a decent tier or a mid tier like free to play unit. You know, he's got a pretty low attack and defensive buff, but at least he does have attack and defense. And again, he is recovering HP at the beginning of every turn, so that's of course helpful, along with his infinite stacking. So just keep in mind that we are using the SSR version, but there is a method to the madness. I just felt like this was the big brain move, right? You need infinite stackers ordinarily to beat this event, unless you can just completely mow it down with pure power, which is possible. You know, for instance, like the Patara team and such. Like, you can get it done with just raw pure power, assuming you get lucky where Legendary Goku supers, etc., right? So the other thing we are reliant on, I mentioned earlier, is Tech Golden Frieza. Now, Tech Golden Frieza is a really awesome unit. When I first started making Dokkan Battle videos, when I first started to kind of hit my stride and stuff like that, not as though I'm a big YouTuber by any stretch, but I was doing content on the EZA of Tech Golden Frieza. So he's really cool. When you're between 100% and 50% HP, he is going to get 80% damage reduction, which is very, very strong. He also gets a pretty decent attack buff at 80%. So no defense on his passive, but he does have massive damage reduction. And that is on all attacks, normals, supers, all of them. He gets that damage reduction. And then when he falls to 49% HP or less, he then drops down to 50% damage reduction. And then he is going to get an additional 50% attack buff. So he's going to be hitting much, much harder, of course, if you fall below 50% HP. But at the sacrifice of a lot of his damage reduction. Now, this unit, particularly Tech Golden Frieza, he's going to work really, really well. I mean, he's essentially invincible already. But even if you were to fall below 50% HP, he works very, very well with a defensive item. So an Android 8 would provide him 50% defense with 50% damage reduction. He'd still be quite strong defensively. And then obviously like a Princess Snake, you know, you can build it back up to 80% damage reduction. And then anything beyond that, you know, he essentially is not going to be taking any damage if you use your items right. And then, of course, try to keep him in harm's way and keep the other units out of harm's way. So right there, we were afforded the opportunity to keep full power Frieza out of harm's way. That's the kind of stuff that you have to do on this Wicked Bloodline run. And then again, making sure that we're getting our units that stack, making sure we're getting them super attacks. That's very, very important. So we're still not quite at that point where we're taking double digits, and that's partially, you know, I would honestly say Cooler. He's probably mostly responsible for that. Let me just say, like, this disclaimer. If you have Str Cooler, Transforming Cooler, you need to run him 100%, because there he just did 3 attacks. This is his 3rd attack. 2 of them were super attacks. So he just stacked his attack twice. He's going to get stronger and stronger as the event goes on. And guess what? Guaranteed crits. So I guess this would be a good opportunity to move on to Str Cooler. Not much else to know about Tech Golden Frieza. So like I said, if you have Str Cooler, you need to run him. I had to run him as a friend because in essence, the Terrifying Conquerors team is a Wicked Bloodlines team. There's just a few other units on it. You know, Tech Raditz comes to mind. There's a few units on there on Terrifying Conquerors, of course, like Turles. So anyway, but Str Cooler, as I mentioned, he does lead the Terrifying Conquerors category and the Transformation Boost category at Key 3, 170 to attack and defense, and then 130% to HP, which I know a lot of people are not fans of, but, you know, it doesn't bother me that much. In a longer event, where you have a lot of units who are stacking and such, I think that having more HP is more beneficial because you don't need that extra defense because you've got 100 units that are stacking. So anyway, that's a topic for another video. So that's a good leader skill right off the bat. We all know that Transformation Boost, I mean, it has the likes of, you know, LR Int Cell, LR AGL Gohan. When we get them on Global, the LR Blusions are also on Transformation Boost. Some of the very best units in the game are on Cooler's category, plus you get all of the Frieza units who aren't on Transformation Boost. So for instance, Metal Cooler, AGL Metal Cooler, he is not on Transformation Boost, and that would obviously go along with the Int Metal Cooler, the support unit. So a lot of good units on his category. So we were able to run basically a Wicked Bloodlines team here. That's essentially what we're doing. Now, he does lower attack and defense on his super attack, which obviously we all know. I mention it in every video, but I will continue to mention it in every video because I am getting new subs every single day. So if you are new or if you only follow a few Dokkan tubers, then you might not know, but you cannot lower attack beyond SS3 Goku in this event. It just, you know, adds for some, you know, added difficulty essentially. But he will continue to lower defense in his untransformed version. So that's obviously really helpful. So he's also getting attack and defense 130%. And then in this particular situation, because we are only up against one enemy, he's going to be buffing Transformation Boost, 30% attack and defense, and 2 Ki. Now, if we were up against 2 or more opponents, he would be buffing Terrifying Conquerors, or Conquest of Terror, I think was the original translation. He would then be buffing 2 ki and 50% attack and defense. So he is a wicked support unit before he even transforms. And yes, he's got a transformation. And guess what? The conditions are really good. So Str Cooler is no joke, man. When people talk about him being the best TUR in the game, it is for good reason. That's a very solid attack stat there by AGL Metal Cooler, by the way. So obviously here against STR UI Goku, you know, getting crits, having type advantage, again, and he gets that additional. You love to see that, lowering his defense. Again, getting those crits, just very helpful. He's a solid unit. We'll go over him in a bit. But STR Cooler, man, there's a reason why everyone he just touts him so much. So when he transforms, number one, how does he transform? Well, it's either 6 turns from the start of battle, assuming you are not up against a Hybrid Saiyans or Pure Saiyans enemy, but if you are, it is the 3rd turn from the start of battle. He can transform into an absolute fucking beast. He transforms into Final Form Cooler, and he gets attack and defense 180% for his monstrous TUR stats. That's very strong. And he is also giving himself 3 ki. So that's obviously really cool as well, considering they did shaft him on links just a little bit. They did not give him shocking speed, which of course would have made him link up well with a lot of different Frieza units. But it's okay, because he gives himself ki, and then before he transforms, he's also giving everyone else ki on any team that he's on. So not too big a deal, but again, you know, you would have liked to maybe see him get a big ki link, but unfortunately he did not. But anyway, that doesn't matter, because he gives himself 3 ki when he transforms, and he raises attack on Super, and he greatly lowers defense. Now, I mentioned it in my last video. Now, when you're talking about just normal defensive lowering, it's not a very strong ability, but when you start talking about greatly and massively lowering, I mean, those are pretty significant. So a great lowering of defense is 50%, and a massive lowering of defense is 80%. So you start doing that many times, and those debuffs are active for 3 turns. So you start doing that a bunch of times, and it really starts to add up, and then all of a sudden you're done with the phase because you've done so much damage because their defense is so low. So it's not to be trifled with, right? It's definitely not as effective as lowering attack, but again, you know, it's effective in this event because Goku cannot have his attack lowered. But Str Cooler, the other kind of overpowered part about his card is he gets guaranteed critical hits against Pure and Hybrid Saiyans. He gets a guaranteed additional attack, which has a medium chance of becoming a super attack. And if you have any potential system invested in him at all, you know, providing him additionals, he can potentially do 3 super attacks in 1 turn. So in this particular event, I don't recall if, I think this Cooler may have 1 dupe. He might be 55%. You don't need a Cooler with a ton of dupes in this event. He's gonna just absolutely wreak havoc no matter what. So right here you can see, we will go over the rest of the units, but right here you can see this is one of those situations where we got so incredibly lucky. Look at all of those attacks targeted at Tech Golden Frieza, one of the, if not the best tank in the entire game. So that was obviously very helpful. And then you had the free-to-play Cooler who's infinitely stacking his defense. He can take a couple hits on the end and he'll be aight. And then of course we are closing in on the Dokkan attack at this point. So anyway, but Str Cooler, man, there's a reason why people call him the best unit in the game. And then not to mention, like, for a TUR, as I mentioned, he's got very high stats, particularly that attack stat. It is over 17,000. It just makes, at the rainbow level that is, it just makes him so incredibly strong. I mean, you see him, you know, by UI Goku, he's in the 4 and 5 million attack range, especially if you get Big Bad Bosses activated. He's just cray-cray, right? We did get unlucky and get supered there, but the Cooler that I brought, the free-to-play Cooler, actually, he's been stacking his defense the whole time. So I guess that would be a good opportunity to bring up the free-to-play unit that I brought on this team. And if you do not have Str Cooler, definitely bring this guy along because he's going to be valuable to you. And definitely give him full additional, by the way. So this Tech Cooler, He's really, really solid. He does infinitely stack his defense, as I mentioned, and I will wager that in the future, he will get a Dokkan Awakening so that you could run him next to the Str Cooler. Because remember, Str Cooler doesn't start out in final form, so if this free-to-play Cooler gets a Dokkan Awakening, and he is final form Cooler, that's going to be really, really good. And then, of course, you could farm Fizz Cooler Super Attack a little easier. But we shall see. I mean, we'll see. I don't know if they're going to do that. I'm just saying in the future they could. But this guy, he is attack and defense. They're at over 4 million. Jeez. But this Tech Cooler, he is attack and defense 40%. And then he is providing Terrifying Conquerors units, which is essentially all of these guys. Yeah, I think, all of them are Terrifying Conquerors. He's providing them 30% attack and defense and 2 keys. So he's a solid support unit, of course. So that's obviously really helpful. There's not really much else to know about that card. He's just a really basic free-to-play card who infinitely stacks defense. So a few more units to go over. I have gushed about the coolers enough. Although, wait, we do have one more cooler to go over. Fizz Final Form Cooler. I would say probably the best of the mono leads currently. One of these units that has aged really well, and it's because he gets defense in his passive. So he gets attack and defense 100%. So he guaranteed launches an additional attack, which has a chance, or a 10% chance, of becoming a super attack. So that doesn't seem like a whole lot. Again, he is a unit that, in theory, he can get 3 super attacks in a turn, so he is still very, very strong. Fun fact about him, I did not have him at all on this account until I last summoned on Cooler's banner. I actually pulled 2 copies of him, so I was very, very happy to acquire him because he is, again, the best remaining mono-type lead at this point. I would say probably him and Vegeta have held up the best, just simply because they have defense on their passive. So again, a very basic card. He does lower defense on super attacks, so that's helpful, of course. Like I said, it's all we can do here, right? That's all we can do against this Goku. As you can see, we are really, really plowing through this. We are actually almost done with the run. So this is full power Frieza. He is very, very strong offensively. Number one, I feel like an overlooked part of his card is he gets mega colossal damage on both his 12 and 18 key super, which is just going to make him do some crazy, crazy damage, right? And then he gets 80% attack and defense right off the rip, and essentially he gets extra attack and key the lower his HP gets. And when you are 30% or below HP, he's getting key +9 and attack 150%. And a guaranteed crit. So he is very strong offensively and can hold his own defensively too when Big Bad Bosses is active. So overall, just a very strong card. AGL Metal Cooler, I would say he is beginning to age a little bit, only because he has to get hit a bunch of times for his attack to fully build up. So in really the only time you're going to see it fully built up is like in the Legendary Goku event, for instance. So AGL Metal Cooler, he's still strong. He's 80% attack and defense, and he can get hit up to 7 times to build up his attack. He does have Big Bad Bosses. He's got some decent links. It just takes too long for him to build up, to be quite honest. But other than that, I mean, he's pretty much a stud. He does lower attack and defense. He actually has a unique ability to sort of, quote, transform into a giant form. So that was a unique ability that he brought to the table, and of course he is the leader of our team. But that is going to wrap up the video, guys. We literally blitzed the fuck through that. So if you enjoyed it, slap a like on the video, and of course, consider subscribing if you are new. I love all of you guys. Thank you for the support, and I will catch you in the next one. Later.